Welcome to Music Theory Fluency. What does it mean to be fluent? Today we want to understand the concept and not just memorize it. To come to an understanding, we want to create a web of interconnected points of knowledge. That way, in case one strand would break, we can still get to our destination through the supporting strands, and probably even recall that information that was lost. Today we'll be learning major chords not just one way, but we will be learning them 3 different ways. While this isn't every way you can learn a major chord, we're going to stick to 3 to make sure that we do create a nice web to start our understanding of major chords, but without ongoing too long and without being too repetitive. We'll be making sure to sound out the chord, understanding what a major chord sounds like, grouping our hands, figuring out common patterns that are associated with the major chord, and finally, spelling a lot of major chords. So that way it's easier for us to visualize that chord in our head as we go to ask our fingers to call upon these shapes and call upon these groups of notes. Let's start by going into detail on what a triad chord is. A chord is a combination of notes. A triad chord, just like a tricycle has 3 wheels, a triad chord would only have 3 notes. So when we take major triad chords, all these bright, sunny sounding chords. The way we start sounding these out is we use our tetrachords from our major scales that we learned earlier. Rather than using the word tonic, now we're going to use the word root, as that's the first note of a chord. Root, whole, whole, half. This gives us 4 notes. We need 1 more for the 5th, so we add another whole step. Root, whole, whole, half, whole. And now for the chord, we stack the thirds. This root, whole, whole gives us our major third, as our major third is built by stacking 2 whole steps. Our second third, we have our third, half, whole, and this gives us our minor third. With our major chord, we then have a major third on the bottom and a minor third on the top, which leaves us with our perfect 5th on the outside. So now let's sound 2 more out. We'll go up to our A. Root, whole, whole, half, whole. And we get A major. Let's go to E flat. Root, whole, whole, half, whole. And while this is one of the slower ways of finding chords, it luckily uses a very simple concept that can be used repeatedly across the piano. Next, let's go into grouping to better help us understand how we can create these shapes. So we'll start once again with our C major chord. Next we'll go to the D. I can sound it out. Root, whole, whole, half, whole. Next, I can go to my E. Root, whole, whole, half, whole. Even though these have different letters, the shape of a D major chord and the shape of an E major chord use that same shape with the white 5th on the outside and that black key on the major third in the middle. We go to F, it uses the same shape as a C major chord. The G, the same shape as a C major chord. And the A, the same shape as the D major chord. B is a unique one. We'll come back to that in a little bit, and we'll go back up to the next C. So, I can think about this in 2 ways. C, D,
kind of like D, kind of like C, kind of like C, kind of like D, and then we're back to the next octave of C, until eventually I can remember C major, D major, E major, F major, G major, A major, C major. Now, we can use our half steps to help us solve other ones. So, I get to my D major, and if I take my D and my A down by a half step, I get down to D flat and A flat, two black keys. The F sharp moves down a half step from F sharp to F natural. And that way, just like my D major has white keys on the outside and black key in the middle, when I move it down by a half step, I get black keys on the outside, white key in the middle. E works the same way, and A works the exact same way. Which now we would have C, D goes down to D flat, E goes down to E flat, F, G, A goes down to A flat, and C. This leaves us only three left to go. The F sharp, B flat, and B. Just like my F major chord has all white keys, a half step higher I have my F goes up to F sharp, my A goes up to A sharp, and my C goes up to C sharp. All my white keys go up to all my black keys. Finally, the one that is the trickiest to deal with at this point would be our C to B major. As I go from C down to B, there's no black key in between, so this is actually a half step. I can take my C major chord down to just the B. Now I take my fifth, my G would not go a half step down to F, it would go a half step down to the F sharp. And now my E, same idea, would go down to the D sharp. I can isolate the two halves of this, my C to B half step, and my upper minor third going down to the two black keys. But the entire B major chord is just one half step below the C major chord. Last one's a lot easier. We have our B major chord going down a half step to our B flat major chord. And the B goes down to B flat from white to black. The D sharp and F sharp go a half step down to D natural, F natural. So this one does get flipped. White on the bottom, two black on top, to black on the bottom, two white on top. Using this grouping pattern, we have our C, D, D flat, E, E flat, F, F sharp, G, A, A flat, C, B, B flat. Which can be a bit weird to get used to. So next, what we'll go on to is organizing these with our circle of fifths. So I take my C major, my G is the fifth. I go to G major next. I have my G major, D is next. My D major, remember I have an F sharp in the middle. My A comes next, and once again I have this C sharp in the middle. My E comes next, once again I have the G sharp in the middle. Now I get to my B, and I do have a D sharp in the middle, but I do have the F sharp from earlier, helping me remember that a B major chord would still have an F sharp, and of course it needs to have the D sharp in the middle. My next tone is the F sharp, and I have my F sharp, my C sharp, and I still have the black key, my sharp in the middle, my A sharp. I now go to my fifth tone, C sharp, or enharmonically D flat. I have this shape with my black keys on the outside, white key in the middle. I go to A flat, and it's the same shape. I go to E flat, it's the same shape. I go to B flat, and this is the unique one, where now I have my B flat, D natural, and F natural. This is the one that's probably the hardest one to remember, but with enough practice, it can really get locked in there. Now, I have my F as the fifth, and I go back to F major, all white keys, to C, all white keys. To my G, all white keys. And we've noticed that these block patterns, with these groups that have the same shape, it's not how they work in a scale, but their similarities are linked on the circle of fifths as being chords that are adjacent to each other.
Let's go on to spelling the chords out. We know that a triad chord is built from 3 different tones that stack in thirds. If they stack in thirds, then the letter names on the staff must be thirds apart. So on this exercise, you'll notice that I've spelled every single note, C through B, just stacking thirds. And we'll give examples with a flat option, natural, and sharp option for every letter name. We'll do C and D as an example here, and we'll be doing C flat, C natural, and C sharp major chords. If you want practice with other ones, this can be used for any quality of triad chord. We'll start off over here with our C major chord, as this is one we know for sure. The C major chord is C natural, E natural, and G natural. So right here, this one is already complete. Now we go over here to a C flat. This is not going to be called B major, but C flat major. And so if C goes down a half step, it must now be a C flat. This E must follow suit, going from E down to E flat. And then G must follow suit and also go from G down to G flat. We hear that major color come through. And so now we go over here to our C sharp major. We can tell obviously right now it doesn't sound like a major chord. So since our C has now gone up to C sharp, everything must move the same amount. So the E now goes up to E sharp. This cannot be called an F because it would then not follow the set of C to E being shown as a third. Here's our sharp sign for now E sharp. We have the same thing. Our G goes up to G sharp. And we once again hear the sound of our major chord, each time spelled C, E, G, C flat, E flat, G flat, C, E, G, all natural, and C sharp major, C, E, G, C sharp, E sharp, G sharp. And we notice there's a trick. If C major is everything natural, C flat major must be everything flat, and C sharp major must be everything sharp. Let's go on to D now. And so over here we take our D, and we know that doesn't sound like the D major chord. We'll remember from earlier in our grouping, we must have the F sharp over here in our D major chord with the 2 white keys D and A on the outside. Yep. Now we have the D major sound with this D natural, F sharp, A natural. Now we'll go down to D flat. D has gone a half step down to D flat. F sharp must go a half step down to F natural. And the A must go a half step from A natural down to the A flat. There's a lot of people who say, well, aren't C sharp major and D flat major the same keys? Correct. But now we can see visually on the music how much different a C sharp major chord looks than a D flat major chord. They do not look like they would be the same chord, but they are the same keys on the piano. They will sound the same, but it's not the responsibility of the composer to show us the chord that we know. It's our responsibility as a musician to read what's on the music and be able to follow along with what is on the score, and we can generate these shapes and sounds from what we see in our music. Now we'll go over to our D sharp major. If we had our D going up to D sharp, then easily we must have the A going up to A sharp as well. We start to notice, we're like, but the F sharp has to go up to G. But this still must be called some type of F to have the D, F, A stacking thirds. This is where we have our double sharp symbol. The double sharp is just a half step higher than a sharp sign. It looks like an X, and this is how we would show that our F natural goes up a half step to F sharp, goes up yet another half step to F double sharp. So that way we still have our D, F, A, D sharp, F double sharp, A sharp. and we can hear the major color come through. You'll find the download for this worksheet down below in the description. Now that we've gone through all three of these points of interconnecting knowledge, we can feel comfortable that we can think of a chord and visualize in our head by visualizing what that spelling of the chord is. If we have our D flat major chord, we have a better understanding now of D flat, F, A flat. This can help us call a feeling of the D flat major chord in our hands with a variety of fingerings. And finally, that we can be confident that when we play that chord, our ear is confident that it can hear the major tonality and know whether we are playing the right combination of notes or not. Happy practicing.